I've always been fascinated by Salvage. I think it's a very cool horror movie.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter.
The only thing that's real is what you feel.
Because he's dead, right?
Because he's in hell.
I didn't do anything, please.
You've got to relive what you did.
I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything.
Leave God now! Ah! Ah!
So maybe you could talk about that era that you had about your independent, the sort of low budget independent filmmaking, and maybe some of that process. Eventually, I'd love to get into Sundance and all that stuff, but like maybe talk about like some of the production challenges, or just what it was like making a film like Salvage at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was working with a team of brothers, Josh and Jeff Crook, who wrote and directed and produced all of their own, micro-budget indie stuff. And we had made a film. The first film I made with them was called The Fittest, and it was a drama. It was a pitch black dark comedy. It was really it was almost not funny. It was so dark. And every character in that was despicable, but it was a drama. And we went back to kind of our hometown in the Midwest and rented a house. So there was this just place where we could shoot and stay and have our meals, and it was a home base, and prices there were dirt cheap. And we needed to shoot in a bar, and we'd go in and ask the bartender if that was cool, and we'd give the bartender a line, and oh, okay, you can shoot here. And so it really didn't cost us anything but food and time.
What year was that?
Oh man, 2004 maybe. Okay. 2003. It might have even been 2002 when we were shooting it. It was 20 years ago. And that, I'm very pleased with my performance in that film. That film was submitted to Sundance, and it actually got this close to getting in. I forget the guy's name. I think it was Trevor Groth or something like that, who was the sort of head of programming at Sundance at the time. Wrote them a personal letter saying how much he had liked the film, and that to get in, it had to be a unanimous yes across the board. So that
you wanted to get
awesome.
into Sundance.
Right. I mean, that was awesome, and that was frustrating. The next movie we made, I think they were hell-bent on selling it, and that was Salvage. So they looked around and they said, what's the kind of movie that we can sell? And horror is the answer to that. So these two guys were never great on pre-production. Unfortunately, they wrote like a 30, 35-page outline, and we went back down there and repeated that same model and shot a feature film, from the seat of our pants. We shot on a digital camera that had a kind of a ground glass adapter that vibrated slightly in front of it to emulate the grain of film. And I think the image quality we got from doing that, it was a Panasonic camera. I don't remember the model number. I think the image quality we got on that was amazing. And we submitted that. I don't think we even planned to submit that to Sundance. We got a film rep to sell it, and he submitted it to Sundance. And I think they recognized the name. It wasn't accepted for consideration. It was accepted to the midnight screening thing in the 2006 Sundance Festival. And
so you think that was part of the path into Sundance, was this the combination of having a producer's rep and the fact that they had kind of, people at Sundance had already kind of marked you guys as being fascinating and interesting?
I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't have enough visibility on it to, connect all the dots, but I definitely think that having made an impression with The Fittest the year before, flagged their names to be like, well, keep an eye out for whatever else these guys do. And then it came up. That coincided with this public push to be like, oh, Sundance is corporate. Sundance isn't indie anymore. There's no grassroots. It's just this big, funnel to the studios. And I think as kind of pushback that year, they were like, okay, you want grassroots? We'll do some grassroots stuff. And ours was definitely that. When we screened it at Sundance, I remember, we get up on stage to talk to the audience afterwards, and there was just a look on everyone's face of like, how did this get in here?
So in regard to Sundance, we had talked casually about this concept of your film ended up being a hot commodity there, partly because every film had a deal in place. They were all bought and sold, right?
Yeah. And again, remember, this was not in competition. So they have a number of different silos there. And at least at the time, I don't know if this is still the case, at least at the time, there was a midnight screening showing, and I think that was 6 films that were not in competition, but they were either horror or sexy or rock and roll or some sort of special category. So there was a Beastie Boys movie that was sort of a bunch of crowd-sourced stuff, and there was something about kind of sex and drugs. There were a few of those films. The only other really indie horror film was The Descent, about some spelunkers in West Virginia who meet some troglodytes. It's
Which
a good
was also
movie.
good. Yeah.
It's a good movie. That had already been sold. So that was being screened, but that already had a deal in place. So I think a lot of people were kind of like looking at it slightly differently. We were in that slot that was like Blair Witch, Wolf Creek, a movie made in somebody's garage for nothing, like literally nothing, that Cinderella Story suddenly starts a bidding war and blows up at Sundance. And that had become a thing. Like, that had become an annual darling race to watch. And that did not happen to us. I mean, I think if you watch the movie, as proud as I am of it, I think there are some terrific scenes. I think that the overall look and feel of it is great, especially for what it is. But it does feel like a short film that's stretched out to a feature. And, the dialogue is not good. So there's some, if people are like, oh, we'll put this out in theaters, I'm kind of like, no, you wouldn't put this out in theaters. But
So you ended up getting a few offers, and what was the one you were saying one company was thinking of just buying it, like it was like a decent amount of money,
Yeah, I don't remember which studio it was, but before, our agent and people advising us said to be coy. Like, everyone's going to want to see this ahead of time. You mustn't let anyone see it. So we did, about a week and a half or 2 weeks before Sundance actually happened, we got an offer sight unseen. They had not seen the film, for $500,000 just to buy it sight unseen. Like, we'll give you $500,000 right now for this movie. Wow. And we had people in the game who were like, oh, you'll make that back internationally. Don't do that. I wish we'd have done that.
I know, yeah. Exactly.
But
yeah, I don't know. Your cut after all that may have not been a very large amount of money. But,
oh my God! No, we got screwed in the way that all independent films get screwed. You get your advance back, and you never see another penny of it. Oh, because they never make back their promotional expenses, right? And they put it out on Blu-ray. It was on Showtime for like 6 months, and then they put out a Blu-ray thing like 2 years later. And but they never made back their promotional expenses. So, and I was not a producer, I was not in a position on that film to do it. I'm like, why don't you hire a lawyer and chase this? And they're like, we'll never get it back. So they were already on to the next movie, and that was it.